super excited for this week's episode of the Silicon Valley podcast. First off, I want to thank Elisa Cohen, who's the one that made the intro for today's episode. Elisa was a past guest on the show. You can look at our archives on the SiliconValleyPodcast.com to check that out, or on any major podcast platform. And with that, Kristi, please give us a little bit of background of your career up until the point, and thank you for taking the time to be on this week's episode.
Hey, Sean, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I really appreciate that Alyssa connected us. She's amazing. So a little bit about me. My name is Kristi Herold. I am from Toronto, Canada. Actually, I grew up north of Toronto, small city. I'm a small town girl. Been living in Toronto for a number of years. Started a company in Toronto in 1996, all about connecting people through play. My company was originally called the Toronto Sport and Social Club. We've since rebranded to being called JAM, and we have JAM Sports and JAM Corporate. And what that means is, so I grew up in a very entrepreneurial house, went off to university, moved to Toronto after university, didn't know a lot of people, wanted to meet new people, couldn't find any kind of recreational sports leagues. And I'd heard about actually the Golden Gate Sport and Social Club, talking about Silicon Valley. I'd heard about this Golden Gate Sport and Social Club, and I thought, hey, that's something I could try in Toronto. I knew I wanted to run my own business, so I started this up. Didn't really know what it would turn into. Had about 250 teams playing recreational sports that first year. And so things like soccer, ultimate frisbee, flag football, beach volleyball, that kind of thing. And then over the next 20 years, up until about 2016, steady organic growth. I wanted a lifestyle business. I had 3 young kids in the early 2000s, and I wanted to be around for them. So I just wanted a lifestyle business. It's nice, steady growth. And then by 2016, I was pretty bored. Kids didn't need me around as much. Thought about selling the business, and then realized what I love most about what I do is actually connecting people through play and seeing people playing because of the work I'm doing. Like when I'm driving by a softball diamond and I'm seeing people wearing our shirts, it just made me feel so happy. So I thought, why sell this? Maybe I should try and scale this and grow. And I looked at organic growth. I looked at franchising, both of which I thought would be pretty slow. And then I looked into acquisitions. Now, to be clear, I almost failed finance. I did do a commerce degree in university, but I practically failed the finance portion. So when someone was like, you should scale by doing mergers and acquisitions, I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, the words mergers and acquisitions made me feel nauseous in university. So I spent about a year talking to people way smarter than me to understand what's the strategy here? Like, how does that work? Why would I buy one company just to sell it? Like, I don't understand. So spent some time learning about that. And then in 2017, started doing acquisitions. And we did about 8 acquisitions between 2017 and the start of 2020, when the pandemic hit. Pandemic hits, and the mandates in Canada, we were in about 15 different cities in Canada and the US, but mostly Canadian. Mandates were super harsh. We lost 18 months of revenue with our sports leagues. We were completely shut down and couldn't operate. So that's when we had to pivot. A couple months into the pandemic, I was like, okay, I can't have my 25-year-old business go bankrupt. We got to figure out another way to connect people through play. So we looked at all these corporate teams that were working from home, and we started offering virtual team building events for companies. So we ended up producing over 1,500 events for companies in 30 countries around the world. And that helped us survive the pandemic. And then all of a sudden I have this B2C business coming back to life, the sports leagues, as well as this new B2B business, all connecting people through play, but very differently. And the new B2B business was now also moving into in-person events. So we've now produced over 4,000 events in person and virtual countries places all over the world. And so, yeah, it was during the pandemic that we actually rebranded from Sport and Social Club to being called JAM, because selling a corporate team building event as Sport and Social Club was awkward, and JAM just made a lot more sense. And it also made a lot more sense for the acquisition strategy on the sports league side, because if I wanted to acquire a club in a city that already had maybe the Chicago Sport and Social Club as an example, if there's a club in that city that I wanted to acquire, I couldn't have renamed it to Chicago Sport and Social Club because there is a Chicago Sport and Social Club. So renaming the company to JAM, rebranding, was great. And so now we have this JAM Sports side and the JAM Corporate. So today, post-pandemic, we've since done 3 more acquisitions. So total, this coming year, this coming fiscal year, we should have about 15,000 teams as compared to 250 teams in our first year of operation. We should have about 15,000 teams that play. And the long-term vision is to get 1 million people playing with us every year. In between the sports leagues and the corporate side, we want to touch 1 million lives every year. We got a ways to go, so a lot more acquisitions to do. But we've done 11 so far, and they've all been incredibly unique and different. And I've learned a lot from every single one of them.
Okay, so right there, I mean, the growth through acquisition, love that model. And it's something that really we haven't talked about too much on the podcast. We've talked about all these, search funds. We've talked about organic growth, VC. We've talked even some acquisitions, but not, this scale. What have you, I mean, with that many acquisitions, there has to have been a ton of lessons learned. What were a few of the lessons you learned so far in this process?
Well, the main lesson is that every single deal is unique. Like people say, have you got your checklist sort of your of how you do this? And I'm like, well, yeah, like we do. We have started to develop one over time, but even when you have the list, there's stuff that comes up that you just didn't foresee. So every deal has been unique, and the lessons learned. I mean, we learned the very first one. It was shocking to me. What I didn't realize was just how much of the business was in the owner's head. Like he didn't have systems and processes documented because he was a one-man show and he had it all in his head. And so getting that all out of his head was hard. So we started to learn that we needed some documentation up front. And so, with every single one, we've just learned unique lessons along the way.
Well, with that, I mean, each one's so different, but what's kind of the minimum expectations you want in an acquisition?
We need to know. I mean, I'm not really sure, Sean, what multiple we're going to get when we're eventually ready to sell. I have a sense, I'm hoping it'll be sort of in the 8 to 12 times EBITDA range, but I don't really know, because and then that's the dance we're sort of trying to figure out right now is what are the Rembrandts in the attic that we can kind of pull out to really show value to a potential strategic acquirer, or how do we show how much of our revenue is actually it's where we're not a subscription service. There's a lot of recurring revenue. When you sign up to play beach volleyball and you have fun, you're probably going to sign up again for another season and another season and another season until you have babies, and then you might stop playing, right? Like we have a pretty long life cycle. So we have to figure all that part of it out. And the reason I say that is the minimum expectation is we can't pay that kind of multiple on a smaller deal, obviously. So we're trying to make sure there's a like a good size,
that delta right there.
Yeah, a good size delta in there for us to capitalize on. We also are always looking right now to add to our top line revenue in order to leverage our current head office services team. We have overhead that we can leverage: the finance team, the marketing team, the dev team, the people and culture team. Like we can leverage that across more and more leagues. We're always looking at any potential target. We're looking to see what sports do they offer right now. Is it, we did one in the fall and it's mainly volleyball. And so I'm like, well, this is an opportunity to get our feet into this geography and start offering flag football and ultimate and basketball. And it'll be a little slower, but we have this nice base to grow from, right? A nice customer base to start to be able to promote to. So we look at that. We look at what other geographical expansion opportunities are there. What other facilities are available that we could rent to expand our leagues. And then it's just trying to grow the base as big as possible so we can then get a larger multiple down the road for the bigger group. Obviously, that's kind of does that answer your question?
No, I mean I like how you said it. It was so much simpler than most of the times I'll sit down with private equity guys and go, this is our roll-up strategy, and we're going to acquire them at this multiple. And then once we bundle it together and we hit this EBITDA threshold, then the multiple bumps up to this. And because of that, we're going to get this return. And you're like, yeah, we're going to buy it for less and sell it for more.
That's
I was
kind
like,
of
oh,
right.
geez.
And that's the part that I didn't understand in 2016 when someone was like, you should do some acquisitions and do a roll up. And I'm like, what? I didn't get that there are a lot of bigger companies that want to deploy $100 million, but they're not willing to deploy $1 million. Like, because honestly, it's almost as much work to do the $1 million deal as it is to do the 100 million. And they're like, well, we got 100 million we want to deploy, so we'll wait. And so I'm like, I'm a little guy. Like, I don't have 100 million, but I can go out and do these $1 million deals and bundle those together. And I didn't realize until I started doing this that you pay, a smaller business is worth a smaller multiple for that reason. A bigger, if we can grow our EBITDA to be a lot bigger, the multiple automatically becomes bigger just on size. So that was the part that I was like, oh, when I learned that, I was like, oh, I get it. Okay, I can get behind this strategy. This is fun. So
For our audience out there, a past interview, Adam Coffey, check out that interview. It was on the Private Equity Playbook. He goes deep into this, but there's something that you'd mentioned earlier that I want to circle back to, and it was that acquisition where everything was in the owner's head. How do you screen that moving forward? And I mean, was there a ton? I'm trying to think of, even though every acquisition is different, there still has to be that kind of screening of, do you want to put your effort and move forward with this or not? Where are some of the things, like if it's all in the owner's head, would you go through that again? Or would you never do one of those types of transactions again? What are some of the things that you're looking for? They go,
mhm,
that's going to be a win for me. I can take that and I can add some of my processes, leverage my executive team you just mentioned,
mhm.
and really see that outsized gain.
So yeah, so we don't want to do that again. We don't want to, and we did learn that was the very first one. And so we've started creating documents that we have in the due diligence process. We have the vendor fill in a lot of information for us, and we get it out on paper. And we never get it all. Like to this day, 11 acquisitions in, we haven't gotten it all, but we're getting better and better every time because we're learning from each one. Like, oh, next time we got to ask for that, and next time we got to ask for that, because every business. It's remarkable to me that every business we've purchased, they're all doing the same thing as we are. They're all running adult recreational sports leagues, but they all do it in a different way. Isn't that interesting? Like it's like the systems and processes and price points and dates that you start your leagues, and like it's just everyone delivers their service their own unique way. And so we're trying to get it into our system, and certain ones are easier to do that than others. So yeah, we try and get a lot of information up front now. The other thing I should mention is of the 11 deals we've done, 9 have been 100%. 2 have been majority share purchases. So we've kept the owner involved as a partner so that they can come along for a second bite on a when we eventually sell. Um, and the reason for that is I wouldn't do that for anyone. I only will do that if I feel like this is a great partner who we believe will really help drive revenue in that region where, right? Like they know their region so well, and they'll be the best person to help grow that in the region, help find new venues to play, and let us handle the operations, but they help maximize the growth. So that's another way having owner stay involved as a partner is good for that. Having said that, there are also lessons learned from doing that. The first one we did, we didn't have the foresight to realize, here's an owner who's now going to become, he's been the CEO of his company. Now he's coming in and I'm the CEO. And so what is his role? And for a while we were like, okay, you're the CEO of the region, but it didn't really work. And I wish I wish we had had the foresight to say, and I've had very frank, open conversations. He's still a partner in the business. He's moved on to doing another business. He's a silent partner, and so he still has vested interest in the success of the business and cares deeply, and we're good friends. But I said to him, I wish early on we had thought, what are your superpowers? His superpowers are marketing, and I was like, we should have put you into the role of head of marketing and have like much more of that kind of a focus and give that leadership role there. And so when the most recent deal we did, I did talk about that with the owner, again, a guy I really like as a partner and a friend. And so we were very clear up front. I'm like, I don't want that to happen again. I want you to work from your superpower. So he's in a business development role. He's a VP of business development, and he's happy to do that because he didn't want to do operations. So it's I'm hoping we're only about 6 months in, so we'll see how it goes. But so far so good. So
that's super interesting. I like how you mentioned the person's superpower and leveraging that, maximizing that, and then moving these other tasks that they don't like or that away so they can just concentrate on the superpower.
mm-hmm.
When you're looking at these businesses, and maybe we can talk about this more later, I'm kind of curious about if you go in with a mindset of structuring the deals and how you're going to structure it. But before even that, I am curious, with all these acquisitions, are you worried at all about the cultural fit of the companies that you're acquiring with your existing company culture and how it could be interrupted, or how, like, is that concern ever come up?
Yeah, culture is huge for us. I mean, we are known for workplace culture. I mean, that's what I do my keynote speaking on, workplace culture. I wrote a book, It Pays to Play, How Play Improves Business Culture. I'm all about culture. So all the acquisitions we've done, not one of them had a for sale sign. Okay. Every single one of them was me doing outreach and saying, hey, you've got a great business. Not sure where you're at in your life, if you're still loving it, or if you might be interested in considering what it could look like to sell. This is what our company's all about. We care about our people. We care about our customers. We want to be the best in class, and I share our values and our vision of getting 1 million people playing. And I kind of, not everyone's interested. Like, I've had lots of calls where they're like, no, not interested, or call me in a couple of years. And those that are interested, then it's like, okay, is it a one person show? In which case the culture only matters with the part-time team. And we have had no problem really there. Our team is amazing at making everyone feel welcome. Obviously, if there's bad apples, you get rid of them. But we go into it sort of hoping that we'll keep anyone employed that is currently employed, and only if they don't fit and don't, that's when we, like, it's sort of a 6 month later, we would be making a decision. Are these people a good fit? But we don't look to go in and clear house. That's not the strategy. We look to try and make sure, again, that they're sitting in the right seats, because they maybe should become part of the customer service team or part of the, anyway. And then any acquisition we've done where there has been a team involved, I've been fortunate enough with each of those situations, I think there were 4 or 5, where I was able to meet the team in advance, which is kind of unusual. I'm not sure as an owner I would do that if I were selling, because it can really upset potential employees, right?
But then how did you convince them to let you do it?
Well, again, these have been smaller businesses, right? Like, where they didn't, and it's not like I'm trying to take advantage. I say, like, there's always, so to be clear, every deal we've done, there's a bit of a holdback, or I don't know the difference between a holdback and an earnout. Frankly, I still to this day don't know. So I don't know if this is a holdback or an earnout, but they've all had a piece where, like, a year later, we're not buying assets, right? We're buying permits and people, like facility permits that we can continue to rent to run our leagues at. And we're buying a database of people who are currently playing. And so we want the vendor to have a vested interest in helping make sure all those permits get transferred to us, and all the people will still want to play. So we want them to give good word of mouth. So there's a tie to revenue or total teams playing, that it has to maintain a certain percentage of what we purchased. So they, in order to get the final piece or holdback, or again, I don't know if that's a holdback or an earn out. And same with all the permits have to transition for them to get the full payment. So they get a deposit up front, and then there's a payment a year later. So because of that, these vendors have a vested interest in making sure the transition goes really smoothly. And so they want their team of people to be happy. Everyone cares. Like, the people I've dealt with, they all really care about their employees, which is awesome, which is a really good sign that culture is probably pretty good, even, as long as you care about your team. And so they've wanted their employees to kind of know that, like, and we're talking teams that are like, the biggest one we've done had 4 employees, they've been sort of 2, 3, 4 employees plus the owner. So they've allowed me to talk to them, and then I've had breakfast meetings, and my own team doesn't know. My own team will know that there's a deal in the works. We're in negotiation, or we're in due diligence. We're aiming to close on this date, but we can't tell you where. We can't tell you the name. Like, we want them to be prepared that an integration will be coming down the pipe around this time, and get excited about it. And they all have a vested interest in that. There's bonuses involved, so everyone's aligned. And then, but the team that we're acquiring, it's really great. It's been really great to get to talk to them and share our values and share our vision, and say, like, this is what we're hoping to do. We're a much bigger company than where you're currently working. Career path opportunities are much bigger with us, right? Because, I've got 51 full-time employees right now, I think. And these are teams of coming from 2, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, right? So, they all recognize at a smaller scale business, they're going to hit a level where they're like, okay, now what? With Jam, they know there's going to be other career opportunities. If I want to go into HR or people and culture, or I want to go into finance, or I want to go into marketing, I could do that. Or if I want to stay in operations, I could get some regions to help develop and grow, not just my one little city or town that I'm in. So it's actually been really helpful that we've had that opportunity to be able to talk to the teams that we're acquiring, and give them a little peace of mind that nothing drastic is going to change, except you're going to be part of a bigger team who is a lot of fun, and a great group of people. And every single one is stuck around. No one's quit after the acquisition. So we've let some people go that haven't necessarily worked out over time. But, I've got, like, Andrew Pronk is a great guy. He came from an acquisition we did in Kitchener-Waterloo in 2018 or something. He's like 7 years in now. And he was like a really junior associate on the team there. And both the 2 owners sold. And I'm like, Andrew, ready to go? Like, you're going to join a bigger team. And he's awesome. And, has really helped us grow in that region. So anyway, there's loads of examples like that. So it's been a lot of fun in that sense.
So is that how, because with all these acquisitions, there's been a ton, meeting the team for some of them in advance. Is that how you kind of de-risk the acquisition, or how do you go about trying to mitigate any potential risk in these transactions?
De-risk, yeah. Again, some of the things we've already talked about, looking to get the owner to document things in advance, having holdbacks and earnouts in place, that definitely helps to de-risk. Although I will say, on every deal we've done, we've paid out 100%. So that's good. Like, we want it to be a win-win. We want the vendor to be happy, right? Because they're also going to talk, and we want them to be able to say, I want to be able to say to a future target, hey, you should talk to these guys. Like, we bought them in 2019 or in 2022, and they're pretty happy, And then the other thing I talked about, one option, it can be good and bad. There's pros and cons to anything, obviously, but to have potentially, if you're open to having a partner stay involved, that can de-risk, right? Because you're paying less for, obviously you're not buying 100%, but maybe you're buying 65% or whatever, or 60%, and you're getting majority. So you're not putting as much money up front, and you've got that partner now who's vested in growing. So that's another option. But that does also come with other complicating factors. So there's good and bad to that. That's not for everybody, but I've been happy with doing that.
What about the due diligence process? What's that like for most of these transactions?
Heavy on finance and like a lot of looking at. We have a huge checklist for our due diligence process now, which we've built out over time and keeps improving. And I usually have a team that are helping me, like my finance team. Our CFO is heavily involved. My investment banking advisor, he's amazing. He helps me with the structuring of the deals. Our COO is involved from the operations side, and then our people and culture head of people and culture and our director of ops, they also tend to get involved, and even some dev. We have to look at dev too, because every business, we have our own proprietary platform. So we're always, every deal we've done, they've been on some other platform, and we're looking at when do we move them off that platform onto ours? Because you can't just do it the day of closing, because it's impacting people's sports leagues, right? Like they're playing and their schedules are up. And anyways, so it's just checklist that we go through to with the owner to make sure that we're covering off everything we need to know.
I'm wondering about right there with that legacy tech component and timing. Do you ever talk to one of these owners and go, wait, you're using what type of software? Okay, if we were to do the acquisition now, that could interfere with things. Let's postpone it till after the season. Or, hey, we better move fast in order to make the changes. For how much, I guess, it is when looking at a company, when what they're doing affects the timing of the acquisition?
It's more about, it's not so much about the platform. We do look at the timing, but we've sort of found there's never a perfect time, because our leagues, our seasons are always sort of, we have this very cyclical, if you think most of the clubs operate on this 4-season a year type basis. The most recent acquisition we did, it does not. Like, they're very different. They run 7-week seasons, and they push them back if they have rain dates. And so it's really different. And it's been it's a challenge. It's not easy, but we'll find a way. But most clubs that do what we do have this period where they're like, okay, winter season starts in January, so it goes on sale in November and it ends in April. And then the spring season starts in May, goes on sale in March, ends in whatever. So we kind of know the cycle. And so there's never a perfect time, because there's always either marketing is happening or it's in the middle of operations, and it's either, scheduling's heavy or whatever. So the owner part of the transition, we do a 3-month transition period with the owner, and we pay them to stay involved, to help with the transition, to help continue with the operation. So we do look at the timing to make sure that they can help finish off a season that's currently under operation, if that makes sense. But from the platform side, it's not really a platform decision. The platform decision is more, it's just looking at the best time to transition it based on when things are coming. We pretty much always know. We used to think we might not. Like one of the deals we did, the one that Andrew was the employee. We thought, hey, these guys are on this other platform. Let's test the platform. Maybe it'll be better than our platform, and maybe we'll just get rid of our platform and move on to this off-the-shelf software. We tested it for we thought we tested for 6 months. We tested it for 6 weeks, and we were like, oh gosh, no. And so we've just been like, our software is amazing. Like, we've built it for ourselves, and it does what we need to do. So we're pretty clear. In order for our operations to get the leverage we need, we need everyone on the same platform as quickly as possible. One deal we did, we took a lot longer to move people over than we should have. That was a lesson we learned. Like, we were probably 1.5 years before we moved them. And that was way too long. It was messy. It was hard for the team to get reporting. It was hard for the head office services team to really help with running the operation. So we know now it's really important to get everyone on the same platform, speaking the same language as quickly as possible. within reason, while also wanting to ensure the players aren't too disrupted by the transition.
I'm wondering about it later on. Do you think you'll become a software company?
It's so funny you say that. Like, it's actually something. It's something we've looked at. Should we be? We just launched our platform. We started building it in 2004. It was meant through many iterations over the last 20 years. And a couple of years ago, we recognized it's at the point now where it's on stilts. Like, you can't build on top of it anymore. It's just too many things are different in the software world these days. So we started a new platform, which we just launched in March. And we only have 2 of our leagues on it right now. But over the next year, all the regions will get onto it. We're just sort of doing baby steps. But we've talked about, should we look at, selling our software? I don't know. We'll see. It's not, I never say never, but it's not the main focus right now.
Going back to the team with so many acquisitions, how do you tell the team, okay, we're bringing this group on? Do they get nervous at all? How do you keep employee morale that everyone's growing and that the tide's rising versus, oh no, that could be the end of me? Like, how do you go about announcing it and communicating with the existing employees about the ones that are coming on and that onboarding process, and that how do you keep the teach us about the communication that goes on?
It's not easy. We bring in as few people as possible early on during due diligence, because I've had some deals get right to the due diligence process where I've paid almost the full price to my lawyers, and then we've walked away from the deal because we're like, you were asking about that earlier about, like, what if, if it's all in their head, like, it got to a point where when we started asking for them to fill in the documents, it was such a mess, and the numbers didn't match what they'd said, and they couldn't understand why we kind of kept going, well, then we can't pay you that. Like, that, what we talked about paying you was based on what you said, but now that we're looking at the real numbers, they're not what you said, so we can't pay you what we thought we were going to pay you. We could pay you this, and then, and we just were like, this is a disaster. Like, we got to walk away from this. But so that was a bit of a tangent. Sorry. To your question about our team, we bring in as the necessary teammates who can help from the strategic side of things in the due diligence process. We give as much transparency as possible to everyone on our team to say, we are in due diligence. As I mentioned earlier, this is what we're aiming to be on a closing date. We give them a sense of size. We'll be like, it's about the same size as our, Grand Rapids. It's about the same size as our Atlanta leagues or whatever. Like, and so they have a sense of the size and scale of the organization requiring, but we don't tell them where. We don't tell them because there's legalities involved, and it could be. And we also remind them it may not get across the finish line. Like, not every deal does, and so we kind of don't want to have people get their hopes up or get too scared either. And then to your point about, we've started to learn, like, the integration part is heavy. Like, the due diligence is really heavy for me. That's where I'm like, 3-4 months of work that's really a lot of work. Like, I'm all in reading legals and whatever, and looking at financials and negotiating. And it's heavy load for me during that period. Once it closes, I'm like, okay, team, over to you guys. And that's when it becomes very heavy lifting for all my team, everybody, the people and culture first, and the finance and people and culture first and foremost, and then marketing and dev and operations. Like, they all are involved in helping. The last couple we've done, we've sent in tranches. We've sent sort of teams of 2 people at a time to the new city. So they've like moved into an Airbnb for a week, and they get to know their new teammates, and they train them. And we've sent like 3 or 4 groups of 2. So it's kind of fun for them to have this travel experience, to connect with their new teammates. And there's also, the most important thing is they're aligned with a bonus plan. So we remind them, yeah, it's going to be heavy work, but it's going to help us grow our gross margin, and you're bonused on the gross margin growth. So like, here we go, and so people, it's good from that perspective. The alignment is there, which really helped. That wasn't always the case. We learned that had to be put in place to make it feel not so heavy.
Okay, we got a little bit of time left. I'm really curious, what's your thoughts of the importance of joining a mastermind group and organizations outside of work?
Oh, that's like
just randomly coming up with this question. It wasn't planted in advance or thought of it. Nothing. This is a spur of the moment for our audience. Wink, wink. Any thoughts there?
Well, so I am. I was originally part of EO, the Entrepreneur Organization, back in 2013 to 2016. Learned a ton from being part of that. I joined MMT, the Mastermind Talks community, where I met Alyssa. Probably in 20, I don't even know how long ago. And I've been part of the MMT community for a long time. And it's a group of global entrepreneurs that I get huge value out of being part of. It's just an amazing network of people, like-minded individuals that I can go to with questions and ask for help, because like, it's hard to do that, amongst my own team. Like I'm the weirdo on my team, right? Like I'm this weird, like, entrepreneur, like, that has all ideas all the time and wants to, do all these crazy things. And I can go to this group and be like, hey, I'm thinking of this. Does anyone know someone that can help me? And it's just amazing, the power, the giving in this community. So I personally find it incredibly valuable. I feel like being able to bounce ideas off of other like-minded individuals is incredibly powerful. Does that answer the question?
Oh, I mean, there's a softball question there. I'm not sure. What's the long-term vision for the company? I think you mentioned help 1 million people, but if there's any, or always playing, if there's any takeaways, advice, stories, anything like that you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap it up.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I don't feel like I can give advice to, I'm just not, when it comes to private equity and VC and raising capital, like, that is so not my world at all. I need advice right now. I actually need to raise some capital for some opportunities I have. So if there's anyone out there who can help me raise some capital.
What was this when you plug the investment banker here? Is that?
That you?
I see how this works.
Okay, Kristi, good to know.
Kristi, number one guest right now out there. Thanks for the shout out. We'll talk more later. Go on.
But in terms of, I'm all about workplace culture. I'm a big believer in having fun with the work we're doing. If you're not laughing with your team every day, then you're doing something wrong. Because if not everyone's having fun with the work that they're doing, they're not going to last long. They're going to burn out. They're not going to be friends with each other. The business suffers. If you can find a way to have fun with the work you're doing, and like if anyone is struggling with how to do that, that's where I can help. Much more so than on the acquisition side of things. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast about acquisitions, to be clear. But if anyone needs help on workplace culture, I'm your girl. So yeah, I just think you got to have fun with the work you're doing. Life is too short not to be having fun, and doing so pays off huge dividends, which is what I talk about in my book. The payoff in terms of engagement, physical, mental health, energy, turnover. It's just a huge payoff. Customer satisfaction is better when your team is happier. There's just so much benefit to making sure people are having fun. And I will say, the finance industry has a bad rep for that, right? Like, for just grinding people. And I kind of go, I would push anyone who thinks that it's too serious of a business to be having fun. Like, if that's, we're too serious. We're dealing with billions of dollars. You know what? I don't care. Like, you should still be having fun and laughing. And that doesn't mean going out for drinks after work either, because not everyone can do that. It's not everyone wants to do that. It means like having some shits and giggles, like playing on a softball team in your local adult rec sports league in whatever city you run, putting a kickball team in that gets some of the marketing people from your investment banking firm, connecting with the investors, connecting with the administrative help, connecting, like getting to know people as friends. That's where huge growth can happen inside an organization that is just so often overlooked. So, but that's for a whole other podcast. But that's where I can help and shine. If people have questions about that, reach out to me.
I'm just thinking the Federal Reserve at their next meeting. It's like, guys, before we start, I got this great dad joke. All right.
Yes, that's what we do. Every meeting we have a jam. If there's 4 or more people in the meeting, we press play to start. It's like 3 minutes. You tell a joke or you play a little numbers game or whatever. Like everyone has their own, whoever's running the meeting, it's on them to organize it. And it takes no time. And all of a sudden you've just had a laugh together. And then you're like, okay, let's get to work. And it's just so much more civilized and humane and fun, So I think the Federal Reserve should be doing that.
Right, Kristi, I want to thank you for taking the time. And for our audience out there, when I'm not the host of the Silicon Valley podcast, I'm an investment banker focused on mergers, acquisition, growth capital, and secondaries. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'd love to have conversations with people 6 months, a year, even longer before they want to do one of these major transactions, help prepare, get all the ducks aligned. And for our audience out there, there's a couple of episodes that were referenced in this, such as Adam Coffey and Lisa Cohn. They're in our archives. You can check them out on iTunes, Spotify, or all major podcast platforms. And go to thesiliconvalleypodcast.com to check out what we're doing, what's coming up. And with that, Kristi, thank you for a great episode. It was a lot of fun.
That was fun, Sean. Thanks for putting me to the test with stuff I'm not normally all that comfortable talking about. It was fun.